Hi, my name is Josh and welcome to theartofmoneysaving.com, to this video that's all about how best to save for a house deposit. Now I think if you're under the age of 40 and you don't own a home, this question is probably on your mind. It's been on my mind for some time and I want to share some of the thoughts that may be helpful for you. The UK housing market stats are constantly changing, but at the moment the average age for a first-time buyer is 32 years old. Now I turned 31 last week. I'm not a homeowner yet, and this is up by 2 years. So in 2018 the average age was 30, so this seems to be changing all of the time, and I think it's on the minds of a lot of millennials that they want to get on the housing ladder but don't really know perhaps how best to do that, or it seems that it's something that's completely unattainable. That said, there were 353,000 first-time buyers in 2019, which was 159,000 more than in 2009. The average house deposit in 2018 was £32,800. But why am I telling you all of this information? Well, I think it gives us an insight into what is happening in the housing market. And also, what I experienced was by beginning to actually search for a house, I started to learn more about the whole situation. And the big takeaway for me is that there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. So actually starting early, doing your preparation, doing your research is really going to help you. I'm imagining that most people watching this video are in a relatively steady job, whether that's a 9-to-5 position or whether you're self-employed, I don't know. The coronavirus situation has obviously impacted the housing market quite severely. During the lockdown, people weren't able to view properties, and I think this still has effects. So whilst people are of course able to view properties at the moment, it's just taken a bit of a toll. But I think this is important because the question then for you is, does that mean that you're going to buy a house in the next few years? Also, if there's going to be a very, very big property crash, maybe that means that you're going to be able to get a property for a huge discounted rate. So I think the takeaway is to be very intentional with your idea of what your particular goals are. And if you have a particular property that you would like or see yourself buying, then start doing some research. Start contacting estate agents just to get an idea of what is required to live in a property like that, what type of income you need, what you need to display for mortgage companies, because all of these things were very variable, and I learned a lot by doing them. The next thing to think about is being realistic about the type of property that you see yourself living in. So do you want to push yourself to the extreme? So if you're paying back a mortgage every month and you're just scraping by, do you really want to be doing that for 25, 30 or 35 years? But how are you going to get that deposit? Well, I'm going to draw upon the words of Dave Ramsey for this segment and come up with 2 points. And the first point is that your income is your biggest wealth tool. It's your biggest opportunity of building your income. And if your income isn't high enough, you're not going to give yourself a chance of getting that deposit. You can try to borrow money, but ultimately, if your income is low, that is the thing that you need to change. And all of these other variable things that we do, unless that is right, you're not going to be set on the right path. So I know that's sometimes tough to hear, isn't it? Because if you're in a steady job and everything's going well, but that's not leaving you enough at the end of the month, it's tough to hear that, isn't it? But unfortunately, that is the reality with rising costs every year, with inflation going, and with the corona times now. Life is tough. But if you're not earning enough now, I mean, where that deposit isn't going to grow itself. So you need to be inventive, you need to have a plan, you need to have direction and focus. And that's what I was saying earlier on about doing your research, because if you do your research and you realize that the odds are maybe stacked against you, then hopefully you can come with an attitude of, right, this is what I need to do. And this comes to point number 2, where Dave Ramsey speaks about people living in debt, and he says you're not going to see the inside of a restaurant. You need to be living on rice and beans and rice. And that's the other idea, is that if you've got to a point where you're happy with your income, you're getting some supplemented income through side hustles and stuff, and have an intentional year when you say to yourself, or you say to you and your partner, we're going to have a year where we eat beans and rice and beans, and our sole focus is going to be going for this deposit. Because if you put in that hard graft and you go for it and you throw everything that you possibly have at it, then you will have some level of success. And I encourage you to do that. If you want to get into a home, if you want to have a house deposit, it is possible. There's thousands of options out there. So you could start your own little side business. Maybe you could bake cakes. Maybe you could be an English teacher online. Maybe you could think about your transferable skills. It might only supplement you £20 a week, but try lots of ideas. Throw mud at the wall, see what sticks, and every little, £20 extra a week from a little side hustle, that's 20 extra pounds to your house deposit. So you have to remember that the way that mortgage companies work isn't always what feels logical to you. And I had an experience of this. I mean, when I was looking at some properties that I could have bought with cash, mortgage companies were not going to lend me the money for that. So even though I could buy it outright, they would say, no, we're not going to lend you the money because we don't feel like we can trust that you're going to earn that much, which feels very illogical, but they have their own rules, and you do have to abide by the rules when applying for a mortgage and tick all the right boxes, which is interesting in itself, isn't it? So someone that's maybe in a steady job and has regular income in, but isn't necessarily financially disciplined, can have more of a success for someone like me that has a variable income but is very, very savvy and make sure that they save. So that sometimes feels like you're being penalized as a self-employed person, or penalized for trying to do the right thing. But nevertheless, that doesn't really matter, because what your goal is to get your house deposit and to get yourself living in a property. So go out, speak to estate agents, speak to other first-time buyers, and see what was their story, what did they need to learn, what did they need to change, and get yourself educated, because doing that in advance is really going to help you save time. Because when you do want to buy the property, or if there is a big property crash, then you want to be the first one going, hey, I want to buy this property right now and I've got my deposit ready. At the moment, interest rates are extremely low, but things do change. And I know for my parents in the 1980s, interest rates were at 15%. So it's very easy to think, oh, well, at the moment they're very, very low. Not to say that they can't go up. And will you be able to afford the mortgage payments if there was this rise? Good thing to think about. And the good news for you is, if you do think of going somewhere slightly more humble, then you can pay a lower deposit. And all of these rules still apply. Being intentional, rice and beans, beans and rice, just means you're going to get there quicker if you have less to save. If you are a young person looking to buy a house, then credit to you for watching this video. And let's think about the different strategies that they are. So if you're looking to buy 1 to 2 years, then cash is king. You need liquidity, you need to go to the bank and have the money straight away. But if it is a longer term plan, 5 to 10 years for example, you need to think about techniques, ways that you're going to grow that wealth. Because in 5 to 10 years with inflation, you're really going to be battling against things if you're just putting it in a general savings account, because interest rates are really low, inflation is still high, and you want to be making your money work as hard as you can. So if it is a 5 to 10 year plan, think outside the box, whether that's peer-to-peer lending, stock market. I'm not a financial advisor, but there are these things to think about. Just playing it safe and put your money in cash for 5 to 10 years, particularly with things as they are at the moment, well, I don't think it's going to end well. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for tuning in to theartofmoneysaving.com. My name is Joshua. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye now.
Subscribe now